Appreciate you streaming here on for 365 with Mac and Mac. And Mike Sielski from the Inquirer and WIP, who I had a fun time doing a show with on Saturday, and said, I'm going to take advantage of this because Sielski on Bird 365 right away.
Nice, Jody. Nice.
Thank you, Mike.
I just feel icky when you take advantage of me, Jody.
And just a quick aside, he took advantage of Ben Davis this weekend, asked him a question about who he's going to root for, either the Phillies or the media team to win the Little League World Series. I loved it. It was such an unfair question. I was proud of you, Mike Sielski. Thank you very much for doing that. So I'm going to try and ask you a fair question. It may or may not be fair, and you can determine that, and John can either nod and say, yeah, Jody, you screwed him the same way Mike screwed Ben Davis over the weekend. Marcus Mariota, if he has to play 2 games for the Philadelphia Eagles this year, Jalen Hurts goes down with injury. And that's fair to estimate because year 1, he missed a game. Year 2, he missed 2 games. I won't even push to 3 this year. I'll just leave it at 2. What's Marcus Mariota's record going to be in the 2 games that he plays for the Eagles this year, starter?
That's a great question, Jody. Part of me wants to say 0-2. Because I've watched Marcus Mariota throw the football during this training camp and last season for the Atlanta Falcons and previously for the Raiders and the Tennessee Titans. And I say to myself, there are certain things that an NFL quarterback needs to be able to do by rote, and completing passes to open receivers from the pocket should be rote. It should be like taking an NBA player, putting him in a gymnasium by himself and having him shoot jump shots without anybody playing defense on him. He should be able to knock them down 80 to 90% of the time. Mariota, to me, cannot do that. Having said that, against the right opponent, given Mariota's running skills, the Eagles could probably RPO an opponent to death and have Mariota run the ball an awful lot and probably get by for a game. But if they are going to have to win or lose a game on the arm of Marcus Mariota, I would bet on them losing that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you. But here's why I think it's unfair, Mike, in that scenario, because as I brought up before you came on with Gardner Minshew, who was 0-2 last year as the starting quarterback, but he played well enough to win one of those games. You can win games in other ways. It has not been there's a lot of over legislation in the NFL, but I don't think they have banned winning games defensively, special teams play, maybe the running game, as you mentioned, with the RPO aspect. The old school thought of, all right, a star goes down, other guys got to pick up their game. Backup quarterback, you got to pick up your game. Is that outrageous to say?
No, it's not, John. Believe me, I'm old enough to remember when Donovan McNabb and then Coy Detmer both got hurt during the 2002 season. And A.J. Feely became a folk hero as, at the time, the platonic ideal of Eagles backup quarterbacks. He went, 4-1 or 5-1 as a starter. And what everybody forgets and nobody wanted to see at the time was that the Eagles defense and their special teams were incredibly strong. And as you said, John, stepped their games up in his absence. There became this narrative that somehow the Eagles offense ran better with A.J. Feely, when in fact, nothing could have been further from the truth. If you look at the numbers, when Feely was playing versus when Donovan McNabb was playing, it wasn't close. The offense was much better with Donovan McNabb, and the Eagles defense and special teams played a lot better in McNabb's absence. So yeah, there's a lot of merit to what you're talking about. And as you pointed out, last season, the Eagles defense did not have a good day on Christmas Eve against the Dallas Cowboys, and that's the primary reason they lost that day. So yeah, that's certainly a key aspect of it. The concern for me would be if Hurts were to miss more time than just a game or two. Yeah. As I said to Jody Saturday on WIP, I'm reminded of the line that Tom Moore, the longtime Indianapolis Colts offensive coordinator, had.
I love that line.
When he was
asked, all the time.
Yeah, when he was asked about why Peyton Manning's backup didn't get any snaps during practice.
First of all, I love the question, and it's my favorite NFL line of all time. I'll let you say it, Mike.
Yeah, I got to, as I said on the radio the other day, got to clean it up for family.
You don't have to clean it up.
Not for YouTube. Go ahead and quote him directly.
I will clean it up. And Somebody asked Tom Moore, how come you don't get your backup quarterback more reps during practice in case Peyton gets injured? And Moore said, son, if Peyton gets injured, we're screwed. And we don't coach screwed.
Yeah.
Although he didn't say screwed.
I love it. Well, the only thing you took the football aspect out of it. By that, I mean, Tom Moore, old school guy.
Yeah.
Awesome guy. Been around forever. He used 18. If 18 gets hurt, we're fucked. I'll say it. Fucked. That all time.
Coach that.
Yep.
All timer.
Yep. And we don't coach that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, I asked this of John earlier. I need your take on it as well. Safeties and linebackers. We all believe that Reed Blankenship, 99.9%, is going to be the starter, and he's going to be on the field for basically every single snap, much like the safeties were last year. And the same with Nakobe D. Maybe less with Nakobe, which is a bit of a surprise, that he's only 99.8% rather than 99.9%. But those guys are starters, unquestioned. They're going to be there. The other two positions are up for grabs. Last year at those two positions on the Philadelphia Eagles, the two other guys, Kaiser White, and you want to make Epps the other guy if you're saying that Chauncey Gardner, and at the beginning of the season was Chauncey because he just got there, but everyone assumed he was going to play, and damn, he played all the time. Do you think Sean Desai is he hoping to have it exactly the same, that someone grabs that job and the other guys who are in the discussion don't see the field the same way the Eagles did at those two positions? Or do you think we're looking at more of a rotation? We know they rotate on the defensive line. That's a big rotational position. It isn't usually at safety and linebacker. How do you think Sean Desai looks at what's going to need to be decided over the next 2 weeks here before the season gets underway?
I think Sean Desai checks in with Howie Roseman, or Howie Roseman checks in with Sean Desai, and they say, hey, is there any move to be made here? I mean, look, they went out and signed Cunningham.
You think they're still looking to upgrade?
I think Howie Roseman is always looking to upgrade. I think he is always looking to upgrade.
True. Yeah.
And it would not surprise me if there was another move to be made here. I'm not saying I have any inside information on this. I don't. I'm just saying I've watched Howie Roseman for the better part of 15 years now. And if there are positions on the field that he feels like need improving, he's going to try to improve them. And timing has become less and less of an issue for Howie Roseman. Look, this is a guy who traded for Jay Ajayi in the middle of the Super Bowl season. And the guy basically became the Eagles' #1 running back right away in a backfield by committee. As you said, he went out and got CJ Gardner-Johnson last year. We've seen him trade Jordan Matthews late in a training camp / preseason. This is what Howie Roseman does. And I don't think the word settle is in his or the Eagles' vocabulary, especially given the makeup of this team and the opportunity they have. So if there's something out there that maybe us and the cognoscenti are not talking about, I'm willing to bet Howie's looking at it and maybe thinking about pulling the trigger.
Yeah, you're right about Howie. We're expecting the August trade. I saw Bob Lang on the phone a lot yesterday at practice. Your antenna starts to go up, and then Miles Jack retired, so it was probably just about that. But I'm sure you saw the transcript, Mike, yesterday with Sean Desai, and he got peppered with safety questions. And I started it off. I think his first 4 questions were about safety. And the reason why is because all of a sudden we get there Saturday, Mike, 13th practice, open practice of the summer. And Justin Evans is getting all the first team reps.
Yeah.
80% by my estimation. According to the Eagles, this is part of the plan. I mean, come on. At this point, you should be whittling things down. And the Eagles seem to be expanding when it comes to that position, opposite Reed Blankenship, who was now an amazing story in its own right, entrenched. Your thoughts on how they're handling the safety with the constant rotation? Jody brought up competitive advantage. Are they waiting for us to leave? Because tomorrow is the last fully open practice of the summer. Are they just waiting for us to leave?
I think that's possible. John, your one line about the plan reminds me of the line the Joker has in The Dark Knight, where people say it's all part of the plan, even if the plan is horrifying. And I wonder if the Eagles regard their safety situation as maybe not quite horrifying, but as we said earlier, in need of improvement. And they're trying things out. And maybe it is all subterfuge until our prying eyes go away after the joint practice Tuesday with the Colts. But if things were settled, they'd be settled, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Look, there are some holes on this defense. I've been been saying this throughout the offseason that people should prepare themselves for the Eagles to be worse this season. And for no other reason other than it's really hard to go 14-3 again, and really hard to get to the Super Bowl. And things like this come up. You sign a linebacker who within 2 weeks decides to retire. And you sign a backup quarterback who is spraying the ball all over the practice fields and preseason game fields throughout the summer. And it's really, really difficult to replicate the kind of success that they had last season. And part of this is running through guys at safety to see if something works. And if something doesn't work to their liking, as we said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bob Lang and Howie Roseman and other members of that front office on the phone.
All right. Need your take on passes to the running back, Mike Sielski, because John and I were on this same page at the beginning of camp. We said we're going to need to see it to believe it, because they just didn't throw the ball much to the running backs last year. And there were many reasons for it, the biggest of which for me was when in doubt, Jalen takes off. If he's got to get down to his third or fourth read, by the time somebody's usually breathing it down his neck, boom, he's turning it upfield, getting 12 yards with his legs. And I expect the same to happen this year, but they seem pretty dedicated, at least in what they've been using as far as time and practices, be a joint or a solo or whatever, to make the running backs a bigger part of the passing game. I think a big reason for that is they acquired DeAndre Swift, who's very good at it. How big an improvement will it be? How will we be talking about it 5 weeks in that this has become a significant component of the Eagles offense? Or is this just they're throwing stuff at the wall here during preseason and then they're going to go back to running the same exact offense they did last year?
No, I think it will be a bigger component of the offense, Jody, for a couple of the reasons that you cited. DeAndre Swift can catch the ball out of the backfield. Boston Scott can catch the ball out of the backfield. We've seen that in previous years. Also, it takes some pressure off of Hurts. Look, defenses know that Jalen Hurts can run when Jalen Hurts needs to run. And I do think there is an element of preservation here with respect to Hurts. If they can dump the ball off to the backs out of the backfield a little more often, well, then maybe that's, 1 or 2 runs a game that Jalen Hurts doesn't have to make. And that saves the wear and tear on his body and on his legs, or preserves him from getting a really bad hit as they try to keep him upright and at his best throughout the course of a season. So it makes sense for them to try to do this. It's been a staple of their offense going back to the early years of Andy Reid. So why not emphasize it? It's pretty surprising when you think about the Eagles' history that they threw the ball as infrequently to their running backs last season as they did. And I think part of that, too, is that for whatever reason, Miles Sanders kind of regressed as a pass catcher out of the backfield from his rookie season until last year. So with Swift there and with Scott back, I think, that's an area that they can improve in and should.
With the running backs, Mike, I'm more interested in the whole committee approach versus trying to find a lead back, whatever you want to call it. They're not going to have a bell cow, but typically you have somebody who gets the majority of the carries. The Eagles spend so much time in situational work during practice that we get to see. So it's either, a lot of red zone, a lot of backed up, a lot of hurry up, these types of things. And you see a ton of Kenny Gainwell and DeAndre Swift. What you don't see is 20 to 20. What are you going to do there? Is that where Rashad Penny fits? And then my second point, do you like the committee approach? Or is that you default to that when you don't have a lead back, basically?
I like the committee approach, John. And I'm remiss that I didn't mention Gainwell when I talked about guys who catch the ball out of the backfield, because Kenny's pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Pardon me. And he'll help there a lot too. Look, we saw an improved Kenny Gainwell late last season. Go back and watch that NFC Championship game. He had a terrific game that day. And I think there's a little bit more there to be extracted from him. And I like the committee approach because it allows you to exploit a defense by using different skill sets from different players, right? We saw this years ago. Again, I hate to sound like an old head, but you saw it with Deuce Staley, Brian Westbrook, Correll Buckhalter. You've seen it under Doug Peterson and now Nick Sirianni. A lot of different guys who can do a lot of different things, some of them with overlapping skills. And it saves wear and tear on these guys. And we all know how debilitating that position is. And so, look, Boston Scott, for instance, been around a while now. Okay. Part of the reason he's still an effective player is because he's not used all that much.
Yeah.
And so it's to the Eagles' advantage, I think, to go about things this way. And I think there's a very good chance that they're going to be better in the backfield this season than they were last season, simply because of A, volume, they have more players, and B, those players are all pretty good or getting better.
All right. This is kind of a prediction question, Mike, and I'm crossing my fingers for your answer. What's going to be either the drop off or the step up, or will it be just a flat line? No, it's going to be a little different, but do they balance each other out? The comparison between TJ Edwards and Nakobe Dean when the season is come and gone, because Edwards pretty damn good last year, and both John and I talked about. I lobbied for him to get a contract extension in the middle of the season. It didn't happen. And I'm a huge Nakobe fan. So I love both players, but chances are one's going to be better with what he had done, with what Nakobe's going to do. How close do you think the comparison will be at the end of the season?
I think it'll be pretty close, in part because the Eagles have made their position about the linebacker position very clear, Jody, and they don't regard it as particularly important relative to other positions. They just don't. I mentioned this in a column a couple of weeks ago. Take the Chicago Bears, whose two big offseason signings were two linebackers. Okay, they spent big money on
organization.
Terrible organization. Like
when DJ Moore goes for 1,000 yards, you might have to skim back on that at the end of the season.
No, I won't.
Because
we'll see. The Bears have had 3 winning seasons since 2007. Yeah. This is the kind of this, and the reason they have been so bad for so long is they make decisions like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Linebackers just aren't on the field very much. They're just not. And when they are, offensive coordinators and play callers salivate, because it's like, okay, well, are they too small to handle the run game that we're going to pound them with, and are they too big and slow to shore up in pass defense? So is there going to be an appreciable difference between Nakobe Dean and TJ Edwards? I would be surprised if there is one way or another. I think, they're just going to be, Nakobe Dean's going to be.
Let me play devil's advocate, because I'm with you, and Jody knows I kill the Bears all the time. They're just a terribly run organization. I think they're doing a disservice to Justin Fields last year. Now, Ryan Poles just got there. Maybe he changes it, so we'll give him a year, because he pretty much took it down to the studs, and we'll see if he can rebuild it. But I do disagree with him paying basically $100 million for 2 off-ball linebackers. Now, that said, he got 2 good players. And I think the Eagles, from my perspective, have taken it too far at linebacker. They've taken the devaluation too far. I'm not saying go out and spend $100 million, but try to find good players. And look, Nakobe's Nakobe. There's some upside there. We all hope he stays healthy. My only concern with Nakobe Dean is durability. He already got hurt in training camp. He showed up yesterday with a big wrap on his hand. I don't know what's going on. I'm a little concerned about the durability aspect. TJ played 20 games, 95% of the snaps, always out there. But from the Eagles' larger perspective, I think everybody looks at TJ Edwards and Kaiser White and says, oh, that's fine. You can go to the Super Bowl. You can make a long run. But there were the Eric Wilsons and the Paul Warlows and the LJ Fords. There have been far more misses than hits, Mike. I think they've taken it. They're right about the devaluation. I think they've taken it a little bit too far.
Yeah, that's probably fair, John. And I think some of that comes down to how much mental and research resources are you going to put into that position, right? Like if you value defensive end and defensive tackle and cornerback, you're going to expend much more intellectual football energy into finding great players there. And as you said, their history suggests they kind of throw stuff at the wall when it comes to linebacker. And so, yeah, is there merit to what you're saying? Absolutely. I'll wait to see how much it damages them greatly. I don't think the Chiefs beat them in the Super Bowl because of their linebackers. They beat them for other reasons.
Bolton, baby, making big plays.
Yeah.
Well, he's in the right spot.
Yeah, right spot when Jalen had an unforced error. So give him credit for that. All right, Shane Steichen coming to town. Johnny Mac not going to be here on Bird 365 tomorrow because he wants to go talk to his boy Shane. Shane going to come in and dazzle? Does he have to show up? The student need to show up the master tomorrow in the joint practice between the Colts and the Eagles, Mike Sielski?
No, I mean, look, it will probably be intense. These joint practices can be and tend to be, but Steichen doesn't strike me as the kind of guy, just from the little bit I spoke to him over the last couple of years, who's going to come in a la Adam Gase or something like that and want to get wild-eyed over a joint practice against his friend and former boss.
Yeah, plus the master has all the personnel.
Exactly.
The student doesn't have the personnel. That kind of helps out as well. I'll leave it here with you at Mike Sielski. Follow Mike on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Philadelphia Inquirer, one of the best columnists in the country. Sports Radio, WIP, get to hear him there with Glenn Mack now, Jody Mack. Mike, when it comes to the joint practices, and Sean Desai let this cat out of the bag, he flat out said, forget about the preseason game. We're evaluating in joint practices. Do you think, as a columnist for the fan base, is that fair when they're dressing this up and charging the same prices and doing all that kind of stuff? I mean, I don't know how you fix it, but it's got to be fixed, doesn't it?
I think it's funny you mention this, John, for two reasons. First of all, I saw it. I'm sure you guys saw it. The news broke last night that the Texans and the Saints were canceling their joint practices because both teams were so beat up already and so concerned about injuries, which I'm shocked. I don't know about you guys that the NFL 2 years into a 17-game regular season is finding that guys are getting hurt and struggling to recover, in when you're 3 years into a much longer regular season. But I wrote a column about this last year, John, where I basically said that this is eventually going to come full circle, where coaches and organizations are going to start saying what Sean Desai said, that the joint practices are so much more valuable that the NFL will get around eventually to canceling preseason games. And then they'll get around to selling tickets to joint practices. And then joint practices will become so popular that they'll have to hold them in Lincoln Financial Field and AT&T Stadium, and then we'll be back to the preseason again, and the cycle will continue into perpetuity. Of course, it's unfair to the fans. It's ridiculous that they charge full prices for these preseason games. I love Ross Tucker, and I understand what he's saying about guys' careers can be made or broken in these games. It's not enough to perpetrate the fraud on the fan that the NFL is doing. And has done for years and years. Get rid of these games. Just go to the joint practices. You've got a 17-game regular season now. You've got an expanded playoffs. Get rid of preseason games.
Yeah. Two guys' careers are made or broken out of 180 players. Each team's got 90, and two guys for the two teams combined are having their career made or broken. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's just not worth the expenditure.
No, I'm not going to the game Thursday night. There's no reason to. I mean, I hate saying that, but there really isn't.
I wish I didn't have to go.
Johnny Mac doesn't have a choice. And oh, by the way, we touched this. Patriots canceled their joint practice this week too, and then hung it on the poor kid that got hurt at the end of the game the other night. And come on, Belichick, be honest. Just step up and go, yeah, no, we got too many injuries. We don't need this joint practice thing. We'll be good for the start of the season. We got Brady to pump us up week 1 anyway. We don't need a joint practice. To do that to the kid who got hurt, I thought was just flat out wrong. But I'm a little sensitive about these things. I'm a sensitive guy, in case you haven't figured that out. Mike Sielski, we always
man, Jody McDonald.
Yeah, that's what's really sensitive. I loved how you screwed Ben Davis on. Can't get over that one. And now Ben's going to be mad at me. He'll never come on my.
He's such a good guy, and I put him in such a bad spot.
And it was tremendous by you. But that's, again, I might be sensitive, but I'm also a jerk.
Well done, Mike Sielski. Yeah.
We all have our dark sides, John. And, some men just like to watch the world burn.
And I love the fact that you showed yours on Saturday. You didn't today. You were much too nice. You should have come on here and badmouth either me or Johnny Mac, and we still would have you back.
I can't do that.
That's easy. That's too easy. That's low-hanging fruit, Jody.
You're too good a guy. Mike Sielski, thank you much. We're going to have you plenty during the season. Thanks for doing it here in the preseason.
Thanks, Mike.
Anytime, guys. See you soon.
Mike Sielski from the Inquirer and 94 WIP here with us on Birds 365. All right, got to come back, put a bow on the show. Couple minutes left. Stay right here on Birds 365.